I see the live button in the corner of my screen. It's Krisna Hanks. I'm the director of our employee wellness programs, and I have the great privilege to have Craig Schriver from Precision Cut Industries as our guest here today. Craig has an incredible personal story he's going to be sharing, and we're going to be talking a little bit about our on-site employee wellness program. We got lots to cover. But before we get started, we do need to let everyone know that this episode, our Monday live streams, are really for information, knowledge, and inspiration purposes. They are not for personal medical advice. If you are interested in working with Dr. Ovadia or our telemedicine team, please reach out and we'd love to talk to you to team@ifixhearts.com. And that was the housekeeping part. Welcome, Craig.
Welcome. Good afternoon. I'm very happy to be here this afternoon. A good way to start a Monday.
Yeah, it is. I love it. I always feel a little bit energized kicking off the live stream. I do want to let everyone know you can put your comments for Craig in the comments section. We will address those. Do want to remind you that it's not personal medical advice, but let's just get right to it, Craig. And tell us a little bit. I know we have an anniversary here that we're celebrating, but give us a little bit of background about what you do, your history with Precision Cut, and then we'll get into your health story.
Sure, absolutely. Well, again, thank you for having me. The Ovadia team has been involved at PCI for a couple of years, and this is just a great opportunity for me to share my story as it relates to that. I'm the purchasing manager here at Precision Cut. I've been here almost 17 years. So I've seen a lot of different things, both work related, wellness related. We've done a variety of things, which got us to the point we're at to today. Me personally, Krisna mentioned a little anniversary coming up, and I thought that was a good way to start the background about me. Actually, as I look at the calendar, November 4th will be the 10th anniversary of me having a stent implanted in my heart and one of my blood vessels in my heart. And from that point on, it has been a journey, as she has talked about, all the things I've gone through. The reason that came up back 10 years ago, I was actually out exerting myself. I was running a race. I got involved with running back in 2012. I'd done it for several years, and I really enjoyed it. I wanted to do it for a couple of reasons. One, I was in my late 40s. My son was 10, and I wanted to be able to keep up with him. So you pick something. You don't know much, so you pick something, and I chose running. I had friends that ran. My wife at the time ran, so it was something we all did together. And I really found a lot of comfort in the solitude of running. You can't blame it on anybody else. You can't give credit anywhere else. It's just you, your sneakers, and the pavement. And I really enjoyed it. And I started getting more and more involved. 2014, I actually ran a half marathon. I got to that point and I was like, well, I'm going to go out and tackle 13.1 miles. And I did. I forced myself to make a commitment. Part of it was financial because you have to sign up for these things and they cost money.
Right.
So if that's part of your motivation, go ahead and do that. But then I came up with a training plan. I executed it. Race day came and I achieved my goal. And it was a very rewarding experience. One of the best experiences of my life. I have not done a second one, but it's not out of the question. Let's put it that way. So I was on a high. That was spring of 2014. And I continued to run that year, maybe not at the same pace because, I had achieved a big goal and I took a break. 2015 came and it actually brought a lot of stress to my life. My father passed away that spring and it just took away from my exercise. I might have ran once a month. I got to October of that year and there was a local organized event for a 5K and I went to run it. And unfortunately it didn't go well. I was maybe a quarter of a mile into the run and I just could not go. My body would not let me go. It was a sensation I'd never had before. It was merely chest pressure and upward pressure. And it was not the movie or TV version of grab your chest, fall on the ground. It was just pressure and it was uncomfortable. So I walked for most of that, ran a little bit at the end because, you got to be tough. But I went home and I spent 4 to 5 hours in bed. I was just miserable and I knew something was wrong. Went to the doctor the next week. They did some office tests. I then went to a cardiologist for the first time in my life. Had a nuclear stress test performed. That's where they throw you on a treadmill and try to kill you as fast as you can for as long as you can. And then they do a lot of imaging afterwards to see how the blood and the oxygen is moving. At that point, they deduced I had a blockage. And the next step was to go for a heart cath to determine the extent of that blockage and what to do about it. So that was done on November 4th, 2015. Luckily, I left that day. They could implant a stent that day after they discovered exactly what it was. And I went home same day. Hard to believe, but it was an outpatient procedure. And that's really started my journey on how can I improve my health? What do I need to do, et cetera, et cetera. Interestingly enough, through all the stuff I've learned from Dr. Ovadia's team in the last year and a half here, everything the cardiologist told you then was kind of textbook answers, and it really was associated with metabolic health. They did have me to exercise. I was put on a statin and a blood thinner, and there was another medication. I think it was called a beta blocker, which I'm not on anymore. And they said, limit your red meat intake, limit your alcohol, limit your caffeine, limit your salt, and we'll see you in 6 months. And I go every 6 months, but it's a little different than the metabolic version of those things. And it's been an interesting journey since then on all the things I've been through, the achievements I've made, the failures I've made, because you will slip. I mean, you're going to do well, and then you're going to slip. Your diet's going to slip, or you're not going to exercise. For me, the seasons have a big impact. Winter, I'm great for the gym. Summertime, I'm great for outside. So, those things ebb and flow a little bit as far as where you're at. But that's how I got into really thinking about my health. And after that recommendation from the cardiologist about exercising, I did just that. But I didn't run for over a year because I was afraid of what might happen if I did. So one thing I did learn is that wellness and healthcare is as much a mental game as it is a physical game. You've got to get those things in your brain the right way that you're going to be okay. And now I've gotten to a point where exercising is my report card. If I go out and I exert myself or I run a race or I, do 100 push-ups, whatever it is, if I don't have discomfort or pain, I know I'm in good shape and I'll just keep going. Whereas I didn't look at it that way initially. I was scared of what would be next. But you listen to the people around you because they're the experts. I was very much a rule follower. He said, do this. That's what I did. I was uneducated at the time. So wellness programs, friends, podcasts, whatever you get into, I think it's important to take all that information in and then evaluate it versus just taking the story from one side. It's very challenging in that regard.
Well, there's a lot to unpack in there, and I really appreciate you sharing your personal story. And first, congratulations on where you are now in 2025. 10 years later, we're going to talk about some of the metrics that you've really also even, you got to a certain level and you're now even bumping it up even higher in terms of health. But let's talk just a little bit about something, luckily you listened to your body that day of that race, right? There are many people who don't do that, and other consequences can occur. But you're continuing to listen to your body, which I just heard in terms of now if you exercise, you see how you feel. What are some of the, do you track things, you write things down, or you just have a gut feeling post a workout, or you're measuring kind of how you're improving your strength? How are you listening these days?
Well, that's a very good question. Back to the original point, your body will talk to you. I'm a firm believer that I haven't lived through it. We just have to be aware enough to listen. Now I'm not without aches and pains. I did get into weightlifting a bit about 2 years ago. I have a 23-year-old son. He is a source of motivation for me. He's fit. He watches his macros. He really pays attention. And instead of son wanting to be like father, how about father wanting to be like son? So I started lifting. Well, I found out very quickly it's a different exercise. And okay, so I had some muscle soreness, not anything else, no sensations like I had before. But I did learn very quickly I can't lift weights 2 days in a row. I need that recovery day. So in terms of listening to it, what's your appetite like? What is your mental acuity? Do you have brain fog and all that? And I found the more I exercise and have a nice steady schedule, I feel better all around. So that's just one of the positives. Again, I use, if I can go out and get a good sweat on and get my heart rate up and I feel fine, that's my report card. The aches and pains, again, we're not 25. We're closer to, I'm 57. I have a birthday coming up yet this year. So, but I feel better than I did 10 years ago to that point. So listening to what your body says is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And already happy birthday when it's on the horizon. Who knows, maybe it'll be close to one of our on-site visits to Precision Cut Industries this year. Recovery and then resistance training, 2 R's here. Let's touch just a little bit. Here at Ovadia Heart Health, we are big promoters of resistance training in combination with whatever other training works in your life. At one point you had running, you might have some additional things that you do in your seasonal approach to fitness, but we're definitely big proponents of that. How do you feel this is helping you on the age spectrum, incorporating that piece, besides competing with your son?
Besides competing with son, I never feel my age. Even before this, I never felt my age. I guess I'm an old soul in a younger body, but I think that's important because I think the time you give into that and say, oh, geez, I'm X years old, that's how you're going to start acting. And people will often tell me I don't act my age. I think it's a different context, obviously. But yeah, I mean, you just have to continue to go and not give up. I'm a morning person, so I get up early and I want to get going. I don't want to sit around. And a lot of times that's associated with older sedentary lifestyles. People just kind of get lazy and want to not do the thing, whatever that thing is. So yeah, I feel good. That's probably one of the biggest markers for me is I just feel good when I get up. I want to go and do, if I do, get in a situation where maybe I ran one day, lifted the next day and I'm off a little, well, you can still walk. I mean, that doesn't hurt me, but I try to do something because, I can tell if I also take 2 or 3 days and maybe don't do anything, then you get the lazies set in. So again, it's all how you feel. And, age is just a number. Interestingly, I had a friend who has a 50th birthday today. So I told her that. I said, age is just a number. Don't let it get you.
Good. You are quite the promoter. I think our audience will be interested in, you had quite a strategy, and we'll also get to talking a little bit about conventional advice and our sort of metabolic health enhancement approach. And I do want to let our listeners know, if you want to know more about our employee wellness programs, please reach out to us. Go to our ovadiahearthealth.com/wellness, and you've got free white papers there you can download, and you can actually talk to a real human being. There's a place to make a call. But you talked to me, Craig, about how you used the period of Lent to also, make just sort of a little bit of changes, and how that I think, if I don't want to put words in your mouth, also helped with improving some of your markers. Can you share with us a little bit about what you did?
Absolutely. Part of the wellness program that we do with Dr. Ovadia's team is we get blood work. And you get it before and after, so you can really get a snapshot of the results of all the effort you put in, whatever aspect you choose to focus on. And in this past session, the Lenten season fell within the beginning and the end of this. So I made a conscious decision to give up my Lenten sacrifice and see how it would impact my health. And I gave up sweets. This is cookies, pies, cakes, candy bars, ice cream, milkshakes, you name it, potato chips. I gave it up. I'll be honest with you, it was easier than I expected it would be. I had done it one other year, probably 8 years ago for Lent. I did the same thing, but I didn't have any way to evaluate my progress then. I didn't have blood work then. So I did it. Interestingly enough, my primary care physician that I use does not monitor my A1C. He does monitor my blood sugar because my gene pool for that is very shallow. My father, my grandparents, they all had issues. So I'm in that same gene pool, but I wanted to see anyway. So my A1C going into the test was 5.9, which is right there at the border of, pre-diabetic. And at the end of the session, it dropped to 5.6. So it dropped 0.3 points just by giving up sweets over that period. I didn't change anything else. My exercise was the same. My daily routines were the same. Simply giving up that one aspect dropped it that much. Now, I'll be honest, Easter Sunday came and I did treat myself. And in my daily routines now, I have some. But I wanted to prove that, and I thought, what better reason than to take advantage of that season. So I think it's just proof positive. Pick something, whatever a goal is for you. If it's blood pressure, if it's blood sugar, if it's your weight. I personally don't like to focus on weight because there's so many factors that can affect that. If you just do your weight, you might be ignoring other things. So I'm not saying don't do that, but pick something, devise a plan. For me, it was just give it up. And of course, everybody around me, the family and friends, are like, "Oh, you're not having dessert?" I was like, "Well, no." It makes it easier to explain when it's a Lenten excuse than instead of just saying, well, I'm trying to change my lifestyle. So take advantage of those opportunities and see what it can do for you. But without the blood work, you're not going to know. And there's so many avenues now of what to do. And again, interestingly enough, through that process, identified that my own doctor doesn't track the A1C. Regular glucose fine. So again, if it's something you need him to include, then just have that chat with him and figure that out.
And really great point, as you'd say, in our what we call comprehensive wellness plan, which is what Precision Industries is doing. We have this pre and post blood work. So you have a chance to make some changes, and you made some great changes. Another good point is pointing out that not everyone checks the A1C. And just for those listeners who maybe aren't familiar, some people call it the hemoglobin A1C or the HbA1C, which is basically a 90-day average of your blood glucose. Oftentimes you'll get just the snapshot, what we call the fasting glucose. But the 90-day average is really showing you over that 90 days, that 3-month period, how you're doing. And to make changes on that, you have to be pretty dedicated, as Craig was here. Another number that's not often checked in, let's just say, your standard panel things is fasting insulin. And you also, Craig, had some really great improvement in that number as well.
Yes, I remember our conversation from here, and I don't have those numbers in front of me. The A1C I actually committed to memory, but I remember you pointing it out. Again, that was not one that my primary care doctor did on his own. So I'll trust your recollection of what those numbers were.
Well, you were in the double figures and you dropped it down to the single digits, and the single digits is where we want to be. And that's tremendous because, again, the two are very important, and you need to understand the glucose situation, but we also want to know what's going on with their insulin. As we attest to in the Ovadia team, is that often people can actually have normal glucose for a long time, but meanwhile, insulin's going up and up and up, and then all of a sudden you're diabetic, and that hasn't been tracked by sources. So good success for you. And I also want to highlight, and maybe you can expand on this, of what you talked about is focusing on one thing. You had kind of focused in on the A1C, eliminating the sugar. That's a challenge in our society where, everything 24/7, sometimes it can be overwhelming on what to work on.
Yeah, I found that in a variety of things. I mentioned earlier that I started getting into weight training a few years ago, primarily because of my son's interest. And he's very knowledgeable. The younger generation, he's just great at looking up stuff on his own. I mean, he's not necessarily a classroom kid. He'll go look it up and find information and podcasts. And he, of course, he shared it with me. But once you start getting into it, everybody has an opinion. This guy says lift weights this way. This one says lift this way. Well, what do you really want your goal to be? And I think any aspect of healthcare can be like that. I'm not going out to get into a bodybuilding show. I just want to maintain muscle structure and bone density and all those things for us older folks. And it's great. I really enjoy going there. I encourage you to get a gym buddy. It's going to make it a lot easier. I don't have a gym buddy per se, but I have another workout group that I got into, and you've got to do that. But again, focus on something. Do you want to focus on mobility or flexibility versus stamina for running? Running a 5K is a whole lot different than running a marathon. Lifting for just being toned is different than lifting for mass. So you've got to really dial that in, and you may need some help to define that in what you really want to do. And your doctor may be able to help. Folks like Krisna may be able to help just point you in the right direction to make that example. But you can't do it all at once. And better is the goal, not perfect. You're not going to be perfect. Pick a couple simple goals. Like I say, I picked snacks and cut them out. Maybe you just want to walk every day, like I mentioned back at the beginning. Start by walking. You don't have to go out and run an organized race, but walking is a great way to start if you're not sure.
And these are all great points. And I hope our listeners are taking notes. And don't forget, if you've got comments for Craig about his journey or about our programs, please put them in the comments section. And this brings up a great point. Originally, or let's say historically, wellness programs in the workplace have been either sponsored by your insurance provider or your maybe a medical association. They have not necessarily been what we would call metabolic health focused. We label them more in the flavor of disease management. Oh, you have diabetes? Here's what you should do. Oh, you're overweight? Here's what you should do. Metabolic health is a whole other avenue of which we hope our listeners are in tune for. Are there any particular things, because you've seen both types of programs, 17 years at PCI, what are some of the differences for you in this metabolic health focus, Craig?
Even in the time here at Precision Cut, our wellness program has changed, just the last 2 or 3 years. They used to be very simple. It might have been more obligation than a real passion for improvement. I know in my previous careers, we really didn't have anything. I think the personal connection makes a big difference. And ours really started with our owner, Brian Greenplate. Brian shared his personal story, and it drove him to make changes in his life and provide that same opportunity for all of us as a business. And again, folks like the Ovadia team came in then to help us. But it really is about information. So anywhere you can get information and what to do with it, because prior to knowing anything about metabolic health, back when I had my issues, my cardiologist and primary care doctor, they didn't talk about that part of it. They were looking at the numbers. It was very stereotypical of what they did. A funny comment that just popped in my head from that: our local hospital got bought out by one of the big ones that are out there today, and I won't mention which, but I had seen my cardiologist a number of years before that, and he's in charge of one of the departments, and he mentioned all we talk about in meetings is customer count. He says, I will not have the opportunity anymore to talk to a patient and learn their history and talk about their uncles and their brothers and their dads and the things that really will help improve health. So he talked about it a little bit in terms of what he should be doing, but now it's about patient count. So you've got to find another avenue to get that information. And if a wellness program at your place of employment or something that a friend recommends you, whether it's a book or a podcast, there's lots of information out there. And once you start on that journey, it's much easier to have conversations with your doctor. I've done that as well. I can now have conversations about this, that, because I can tell him what this number means and that number means instead of him just telling me. So it has definitely evolved outside of just the information base or a personal connection that's driving that. I'm not sure where the industry's taking it. I know insurance companies are very challenging in a lot of different ways, and healthcare is just becoming so big and bold. And again, maybe numbers driven versus really, are we helping people? I think that's a real opportunity for us.
Yeah. And two big, highlights out of that for me is the, helping build your own personal information base. Something you had shared with me, and I'm using this a lot lately, is you told me you were a better advocate for yourself now in terms of your health. And certainly from the Ovadia team, one of the things we want to hope is that everyone should invest and take charge of their health. And that sometimes does require being a real strong advocate for your own health.
Yeah. And I think back with my anniversary of when that first happened, the cardiologist said, do this, this, and this. Well, that's what I did because I didn't know any better. And, at the end of the day, we're all out to please, whoever, whether it's your boss, your teacher, or whatever it is. So you did that, but you really didn't know. And when your own health is at stake and your future and how many years you're going to be on this planet, it's worth the extra time to get that information and the motivation that comes from it as well. I mentioned that briefly before. I get motivation from my son and my father because my father was very unhealthy when he left this planet, but he didn't know any better. So we can't blame him. He didn't have the information and the technology that we have now to be connected. But I can tell you there's a million podcasts out there that you can listen to in the car on your way to work. In our program, there's a tremendous amount of information that's available to us. So if you have an opportunity, any source you have, by all means, do that, take that. And then just talking to people. We have on-site visits. They're wonderful. I love those. And from all of that, you've got to go find your discipline at the end of that, which is really hard. That's the hardest thing of all, is finding your discipline.
Yeah. A line I use frequently is turn your motivation into consistency. Yep. Something I learned from my father, who was a basketball coach. Yes. And the personal connection, just definitely you highlight our current medical system does not allow for much time with individuals, whether it's knowing your history or your what you're willing to work on, helping you navigate the nutrition space or the stress reduction space, all of those kinds of things that maybe at one time we sort of took for granted. You had mentioned stress in terms of heart health. That's a big part of our program, is talking about stress reduction, nutrition, obviously exercise, daily movement, sleep. The list is endless, but often those buckets sort of get put to the side and we focus only on the lab numbers. But you're perfect example that it's the total package.
Yeah. And it is a journey. Like I say, we're not perfect. I had a period of time probably around 2019 where I got very complacent with the progress I'd made, and hey, day to day was fine. I had gained some weight and I didn't like it. So don't be afraid to make that mistake. You're going to have some failures in there, but get up tomorrow, the next motivation, whatever, pick a goal and move on.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Gary Taubes, as many of our listeners know. He's a science journalist, written lots of books. I recently heard him speak live, and he said, the good thing about whether it's the low carbohydrate, ketogenic, kind of whatever space you're in, is if you fall off the wagon, at least there's a wagon to get back up on.
That's very true.
And sometimes that wagon might just be tapping into your team. I know you've talked to me a little bit about, you have a group of individuals. Is it Saturday mornings that you get together with?
It is Saturday mornings. That's another form of motivation. Again, after my stent implant, that first year I didn't run at all. Again, I was fearful of what would happen. And I have a personal friend who I've known for 25 years. He and two other friends would get up Saturday mornings, go to the local park, and they called it Forge. It's very similar. Some of you may have heard of F3. It's another kind of national group of folks, and they get together for companionship, a little camaraderie, and of course the fitness part of it. And he kept saying, Craig, you got to show up. Craig, you got to show up. And I said, no, Eric, I cannot keep up with you. I'm 10 years older than you. I'm by far the oldest guy that would be in the group. And I didn't do it for probably 2 years. And once I started making progress, returned to running, felt good, I finally gave in and I said, I'm going to do it. I said, but hey, if I can't do the things you're doing, if I do 10 push-ups and you do 50, so be it. And I still do that to this day. I go every Saturday morning. Our group has changed a little bit. There's 3 of us, 6 o'clock, rain or shine or snow, we go out there. We might have to change our workout plan a little bit, but we run 3 miles and we do 600 reps of something, push-ups, sit-ups. But most times we end up talking a lot about what happened that week. So that fellowship is there as well. That is motivation. I'm going to get up. I'm going to go talk to my buddies. Oh yeah, and we're going to sweat a little bit at the same time. So find out what works for you. I mentioned gym buddy before. Maybe it's not in the gym. Maybe it's just a walking partner. Maybe it's a running partner. I think running partners are difficult because I can't talk when I'm running too much. But find out again what works for you and what drives you. If it's a close friend and they just don't want any part of it, well, don't pick them. But find somebody. So yeah, I still do that to this day, and it's I get criticized a lot because I get up on the same day on a Saturday as a work day. But you know what? It's fine.
It's very good, and I'm going to start borrowing this word from you. I often use community. We need community to be healthy. We need a team to be healthy. But fellowship, that is a really good way to explain it, because oftentimes the people who are supporting you in your health endeavors are more than just a companion. They are really there, maybe sometimes to challenge you, but most definitely to support you. And I think this is also where we feel we thrive in at the Ovadia team. You know, we have our on-site visits, which is unique to Worksite Wellness. A lot is just virtual based. We do some of that, but we do come on site, get to know people. I got to know you and your story, and many others. And I think this is something, you know, that we have to keep working and putting more energy into, just like you're getting up on your Saturday mornings. That, hey, that's your day off. But
it's a form of accountability too, because if you're just going to go do it yourself, you're going to say, well, boy, it's cold. I'm going to roll over and pull the sheet up over my head. I don't do that because I know that those two guys are at the other end, and we text Friday night and I got to show up. So yeah, that accountability helps with that motivation and the discipline. Maybe it's a guilt trip, whatever it is. If it works, you're still going to be out there.
Yeah. As long as you're still doing it. And again, everyone needs to find, you had some great things in, you know, that you sort of offered as I was getting Craig's toolbox for health here. I'm good on borrowing things. So, but I will always give you credit if I share it. Advocate for yourself, but also know I like this line, define your means of motivation and discipline, and really emphasizing because we're all going to be different.
Yeah. And again, for me, I have, my family motivates me. Like I said, my father and my grandmother had issues. So I want to outlive them. I've said that to my family. I want to be the longest living Schriver, you know, from generations, not selfishly, just because, you know, I want to enjoy this life that we have. I think it came from one of our sessions where somebody said, I want to die young, just as late as possible. Or if that
Yes.
hits me for anybody.
I can't remember who that was, but it reflects what we talk. You need to know what your why is. Why do you want to be healthy? Why do you want to live long, right? Family, but that's a great way to put it. You know, we've talked a lot about the positive side. What are some of your tools, Craig, that you've been using either in your role at PCI or just in health in general? There are going to be roadblocks from time to time. It's not all rosy, right? It's not, we can't always put a smiley face on it. What are some of your ways? You're at your 10-year anniversary of your stent, had some great improvement this last year. What are some tools that you could share that help you if you encounter a roadblock?
I would say probably one of the biggest challenges for me is still diet, because there's so many temptations in our daily life. And I identified one of my vices, if you will, a while back. And my vices are anything that I can pick up. So I'll use work as an example. You know, I have a sales guy that'll call him and he brings 2 dozen donuts because he feels guilty showing up with nothing in his hands. He's a salesperson. That is a challenge for me to resist that donut, that cookie, that piece of candy, anything I can pick up. And interestingly enough, I remember some discussions in one of our how to quit sessions that we had here, about, closet, things of that nature, so people will eat in private so that they don't see you snacking. And it's probably related. So what do I do? Again, we talked about my Lenten sacrifice, and it's actually pretty easy. I think that is one of the most challenging ones for me. So I just have to avoid it. The candy basket in the office, I have to avoid going in that office. If I know a sales rep's coming, I've already asked them, don't bring donuts. They wonder why and think I'm crazy, but don't bring those donuts. So remove that temptation, whatever it is for you. So identifying that, I think, is a real important for everybody in their own individual situation. If it's a piece of cake and I have to cut it and get a plate, it's not a problem. I'm not going to bother with it. So, but that's one challenge I face all the time. Social, when you're out at social events, maybe it's family or friends, there's always hors d'oeuvres to pick at. There's chips and salsa. And of course there's beer or wine or whatever. Pick what you're going to do. And if you say, well, I'm going to have a glass of wine, have a glass of wine. Don't have 3 throughout the night. It doesn't mean you have to not participate at all, but really know your limits, but know where your weakness is. And for me, that's what it was. The convenience store was a weakness for me. Long day at work. I'd leave work. I probably didn't have lunch or the lunch I should have. I'm thirsty. So guess what? There's a convenience store. You go in to get yourself an iced tea, but you come out with the iced tea and some sweet confection thing, and you eat those 800 calories on the way home and just ruins your day. So for me, it's just I actually started driving a different route to go home, so I didn't pass that convenience store. This was years ago, but it's still a temptation. It really is.
And key points here, you can start a business as a coach is, know what your weaknesses are and have some, we call them brain workarounds, or that is, maybe you need to take a different route, right? Mm-hmm. If driving by Dunkin' Donuts is a trigger, maybe find a different street.
Find a different route.
Right.
I find it easy at home though, because I just don't buy those things. So you don't buy the cookies and the chips. It's easy at home, but I'll still go look for a snack. But maybe I'll find yogurt and fruit in the fridge, and I won't find the cookie. It's the other areas that you're in. Again, social times or dining out sometimes can be a challenge. Because the first thing to do is, would you like any appetizers? You have to be disciplined enough to pass.
Right, so, right. A lot of it is we talk often in our programs, and again, if anyone's interested in knowing more about our employee wellness programs, please reach out to us. We're excited. We're in year 3, where Craig works at Precision Cut Industries in Pennsylvania, which we'll be heading out in September to be on site there again. We also have a bunch of white papers. I believe we're up to count 7 almost. Those can all be downloaded for free, from topics about resiliency, addiction in the workplace, musculoskeletal issues. We're covering all the top topics there. As we start getting close to the end of our time, are there any things, Craig, that you wanted to share or talk about that we haven't touched on yet?
Wow, I think we've covered a lot, to be totally honest with you. Again, I've thrown a lot of catchphrases out there, and I'll give credit to the variety of people I've been exposed to in the last 3 years, because most of them really have come with our newer programs. I think back to right after my stint and the things that I didn't know. And again, I wasn't a kid. I mean, I was 47 years old. I should have known better and asked more questions. But I think you have to live through it to really make yourself a better person. And I'm not done yet. Who knows where I'll go. Krisna mentioned Gary Taubes. I actually have read one of his books. I have more to read. So maybe that's something for everybody individually is, again, get some information, however it is, find your motivation, the discipline. Again, that's got to be you. Maybe you'll get up Saturday morning with me. Who knows?
And I would add on, and once you've found that motivation, keep practicing, right? Practice. Some days it might be there and some days it might not, but the more you practice, the easier it gets. Well, we've offered lots of tools here for individuals to tap into. So any thoughts about 2025 and your anniversary year? Are you going to be celebrating with a steak or?
Oh, I don't need a steak to celebrate. I had steak last night, actually.
There you go.
But the biggest thing is it's been a very busy year for me personally. My son graduated college. He's off to start the rest of his life. Vacation was good. So now we're getting into the fall. Cooler weather is great for being outside. So it's my favorite time of the year. So I do look forward to getting out and just maybe doing some things I didn't get to previously. One thing I have not done in a little while is I have not set a goal of something to go do. I haven't run an organized race this year of any nature, whether it's a 5K or more. And it's been 3 years since I did anything bigger than that. So I'll throw this out as a challenge to maybe anybody else. If you're a runner, they do a 10K across the Chesapeake Bay Bridge down outside of Annapolis. And I've done it twice since my stint implant. So those were kind of, 2018, 2022. I'm considering doing that next year. It's a little late for this year because it's November and I'm certainly not ready for a 10K. But those are the things I think about. What can be that next big goal? Because once you commit, again, in the case of a race, you paid the money or you get a friend to do it with you, then you're in. You have to do it. You can't back out. So that's really what I'm looking for. Is that a reward, as you asked? Maybe, maybe not. I think it is because it's going to keep me going.
It certainly is. Right, having a new goal, and you're definitely going to have to get together with Chris, who you met briefly today. He's been doing some races as well to get a little camaraderie going there. But you're a perfect example, Craig, of letting yourself be vulnerable, sharing your story, and we would encourage, if you are an employee at a company, of finding the people where you feel comfortable and safe to share your story and start seeing if your employer wants to do more in the realm of metabolic health. And sometimes it just starts with one person's journey that can inspire others. Something you shared to me is maybe they're tired of you sharing your story. I don't think so. Not at all, because it's such a great story. And whatever goal you decide on, maybe it's a goal of reading another Gary Taubes book. My goal this last year was try to read something not on my device every morning. And I've doubled my book consumption, which has been great.
Wow. That's a challenge.
We're honored to be able to offer the program and that Brian Greenplate has inspired to bring us on at Precision Cut Industries. And again, we can put this is PCILasercut.com. We can find all about the great things they're doing there in Pennsylvania. Thank you so much, Craig. This was an incredible honor.
It was I enjoy it immensely. I enjoy it. So if there's any questions, please feel free to ask. I love sharing my story if it's not evident. And I really look forward to you guys coming back in a few weeks and kicking off the new year with the whole team here.
We're super excited about that. Again, here's the website if you want to know more about our employee wellness programs. And thank you. Keep up the good work. And I'm excited for the fall season, and you can spend more time outside too.
You got it. You got it.
All right. And thank you to our listeners.